I work with ad agencies, design firms, and in-house art departments all the time. And when I'm provided with design assets, I get to see how other creatives organize and construct their vector artwork. I've observed the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to vector-based logo files. So in this movie, I want to reinforce the importance of using grouping and isolation mode to make your logo designs easy to manage and to use. So here's an example of one logo iteration. They ultimately went with a different design direction for the final logo, which came out great, but I like this motif. But when I create a logo design, I group it in such a way so when I present the final logo art to the client and it's provided to a vendor to either run out t-shirts or banners or signage, I set it up in such a way so it's easy for them to use the logo and it's not going to cause production problems or hassles of use, or they move something and it ruins the design altogether. And what I mean by that is you can click on this logo and I can move this around anywhere as shown here. And if I click into this, if I select it and double click into it, you can see up here we have a grouped logo. And now I'm into the first group or the isolation mode for this logo. And when I'm in the isolation mode, I can select just the brand mark, and you can see that this is also grouped as its own element. I have the type here grouped as its own element, and then down below I have the subtext here grouped as its own element. So if I wanted to move these flames for some reason, I'd have to double click into this secondary group, and you can see we've gone into a second category of isolation mode. All of this is not available to me now, the logo type and the subtext, but now I have ability to select just the drop with the character in it or the flames on each side. So this is how I'll set up a file. And this way, if a client uses this, they could copy and paste this to a new app and everything's in the location it should be. Nothing moves, nothing gets tweaked or forgotten. And that's important. It's a simple process, but you have to get in the habit of doing this or you're going to cause problems for other people when they go to use your logo files. So let's take a look at the exact same logo. But in this case, if I provide the logo to a client and I'm not using groups and therefore doesn't set up anything for isolation mode, then I'm going to cause problems. Unless they're paying attention and they select like this is good, and they can move it if they select it like this. But as soon as it's deselected, they can't just simply grab a shape and start moving it because it'll start pulling apart. And they'll go, well, no, I don't want that. And if they move this drop part, these inner parts aren't part of it because it wasn't set up that way. It wasn't organized in such a way. If they grab the type, nothing is set up as compound paths. All these are separate pieces. They might be able to pull this away, which is a compound path, but the bullets in between them are left behind. So it makes the usage of the file really hard. What you want to do is set it up in such a way that none of this happens and it works as a unified whole. Let's take a look at another design. When I present concepts to a client, I don't build out the final artwork all the time. I try to get it visually what I want it to look like on the final without committing to certain types of building methods. So on this one, this is one secondary branding graphic for this company, and it's a more horizontal based one they can use to create stickers, for example. Now, I wanted to show them this idea, but I didn't want to edit this artwork. So you can see how it's running through the wrench of this character. That's because this is grouped to look like it's supposed to, but if I double click into this isolation mode here, you can see I have a white shape that's behind the wrench right here, and this white shape is just overlapping this badge graphic I created to give the illusion that it's overlapping without destroying the original art. So when I comp something up, I'll comp it up like this, but let's take a look at the keyline view here. You can see how it runs through where the wrench is. in the keyline view. But when I set up the final art, if I go to keyline view, you can see it just cuts into that shape. So it's the same exact visual aesthetic as the comp. It's just set up for production-ready art, which is important. So once again, this is all set up using groups. So I have it grouped. So if I click into the isolation mode, I have the character grouped. I have the backgrounds on its own. I have the type group. So I want to go into the character. And now that I'm into the character, nothing else is available. So I use grouping to form that isolation mode to control and manage this mark. And I do that on every logo iteration I provide to a client. Now, once again, when I'm comping up a design, I may know right up front that eventually I want to use the context of this logo, in this case, the custom typography for Deluxe. I want to use it in other contexts where it's not nested with this spade shape that's part of their primary brand. So in my comp, I set it up like this, where you can see these shapes overlap each other, the outline of the Deluxe and everything, but visually it looks right. But production-wise, it's not ideal to deliver the final art in this manner, although I've seen a lot of logo files kind of set up like this, and they do use grouping. But the problem with that is as soon as something comes ungrouped, it could very easily kind of mess up the design. So I would embed this all together into its own shape and form for this iteration of the logo mark. So what you end up with is artwork that is precise and everything locks into place. So it's just a creative habit to get into to work this way, but the more you do it, the easier it's going to become. It's going to facilitate usage of the mark. So this shows an example of their primary brand printed on the front of a growler and then using an iteration of that logo type on the back of the growler that's unnested, doesn't have any of the other information around it, just focuses on that type alone. So that's the flexibility of managing your logo assets this way. If you don't organize and manage your art well, now is the time to make this a new creative habit. It ensures others will have less chance of messing up your design when they go to use it. Digital methods give us precision and the ability to really button up a design and manage it well. So take advantage of these features.